Hey, what's up everyone? Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids. Brand new to me, right here from Tops Knives. This is the Storm Vector. So I'm gonna actually, people do unboxing videos. I'm gonna do an unbagging video, and I can tell you confidently that the plastic on this is very durable. But let's take the Storm Vector out and take a look at it. Here's your Kydex. As always, you get your whistle with your Tops knives. Nice Kydex. Because of its length, you're going to basically slide the blade down to the top. Take a look at that. There's your snap. Let's see if it's yeah, so you can see if you pull this way, you can't do it, but if you pull up, it's got the pull the dot system, I believe it's called. Is that the pull the dot system? And yeah, it's got that little extra kind of nub there, so you can, you're not going to accidentally bump it and have it fall out while you're walking around. Here's the actual Storm Vector. Look at that thing. You get close up there. Storm Vector from Tops. This is a chopping tool meant to do some serious work. So a couple things. Let me hang this up real quick. So I asked for this knife from Tops because first, I really like Tops knives and what they're doing. Secondly, I love choppers. And third, this one stood out to me because of the different profile. I mean, that type of profile is very unique, and yet it is definitely pretty chunky, right? So that straight edge, no recurve. One of my standards is the I.C.E. hungless for chopping tools. And this one has, you know, a similar kind of look overall, but definitely some uniqueness to it as well. Very stark angles. The idea, I think, is sort of like off a Viking short sword concept. If you look at the handle there, looks like we got black micarta, those nice bright blue, like royal blue liners, which is sweet. Give you a little look at the contour of the handle. You do have a choil there, so you can choke up a little bit, and obviously the choil so you can sharpen all the way down to the end of the blade. You got two lanyard holes there that go through, obviously. That's what a hole is going to do for a lanyard. You need that for a lanyard. As soon as I pick it up, this is where my hand wants to fall, my thumb like that. There is no huge finger guard locking your hand in, or, protecting you from having your hand slide up. So be aware of that. However, when I do pick it up, I do feel like the handle is neutral and chunky enough that I'm gonna have a good chopping control of this thing. So again, I wanted to get this because of the uniqueness, just of the overall look, because I love choppers, and then just something I'm aware of as soon as I, started looking into it a little bit more. Definitely a thin tip there. So that will give you the advantage of being able to pierce and maybe do a little bit more kind of detail work despite the size of the blade, but also something to be aware of. Don't jam this into something and then start prying on it. So there's a quick look at the Storm Vector. Let me give you some of the details now. All right, so we're looking at 18.25 inches from end to end, 12.63 for your blade. As I mentioned, we have black micarta. They call this the acid rain finish. It doesn't stand out, like it doesn't look, it's got like a ton of kind of feature in it. It's definitely not just like a straight up, satin finish. But just so you know, in case you hear acid rain and you're like, does that mean it's gonna have all kinds of like sort of a patina finish on it? It doesn't. It's just kind of a darker grayish finish. 0.25 inches for your thickness, 24 ounces without the sheath and 32 ounces with the sheath. I already showed you the sheath, but I'm gonna grab it here, just show you one more time, just so you can see. It does have the dangler system, and it also has a metal, let me get this right here, metal loop or D-ring there, which is great as opposed to a plastic one. Slides in basically like this, and then lock this down. And again, if you've never done this before, if you try to just press it sideways, it's not gonna work well, so you kinda wanna press the, let's see, line it up. Get the top section, the top portion of the button on first, and then clip down. And then that really loud click means that it's locked into place. In general, I would take this off. I just don't want that dangling around when I'm walking with this. But yeah, and you can also certainly just throw this in a pack. You could strap it to a pack if you wanted to do that as well. Also, as far as your steel, 1095, which is pretty standard for most of Tops knives. They do have some other knives that are in other steels, S35, VN. They've got some 440 as well, but vast majority is gonna be 1095. So with all that said, let's start putting this thing through the paces, and this will be the first look, and then I'll use it off camera, maybe get some more footage, and then come back. Ooh, there's the sun. And then come back and share a little bit, after I've had a chance to use this thing for a while. So you can see some of the thickness once that branch got a little bit thicker. Definitely not an inch across, but the heaviest or the thickest section was about that. So I would say, I don't know, half an inch, 2/3 of an inch. But just want to see the weight and how it felt chopping in hand. It's got the heft to chop through these things, but also doesn't feel unwieldy. So there's our first test. So there are a few quick tests. That last log that I cut through, which kept getting kind of knocked off the camera, I had to readjust the angle a couple times. It was probably that across, maybe a little bit smaller, you know, so a solid 2.5, 3 inches across. That was a little bit clumsy, not because of the storm vector, but because of the weird angle. So had that been something that I stood up and was chopping like this, it would have just been much easier to handle it that way. But it certainly chops smaller things, larger things. The weight, I think, is just about right. Again, I love the I.C.E. hungless, and this has a very similar feel to that. And this one, what was the other thing I was going to say? It bites in really nicely. It doesn't feel like the angle on the actual edge has any, you know, I don't feel like as I'm chopping, oh, this is really frail, or man, this thing is just clunky. It really slices in. You probably saw a couple times I had to kind of yank on the handle to get the blade unwedged from the wood. So there's a quick look at some of the initial, you know, use of the storm vector. I think there's actual official YouTube protocol that when you are doing outdoor survival videos, bushcrafting type of stuff, if you don't do a feather stick, then you get fined on your channel. So I have to do a feather stick because I don't want to get fined. It is always good to see how a larger knife like this, or a larger blade, can do on some of that detail work. And you may or may not know this, but one of the keys to your feather stick, it's less, certainly the blade is important. Don't want to underplay that, but you got to have a good piece of wood that gives you good angles. There's a skill set to learn, but also if you just have bad wood, even if you have a good knife, it can be quite challenging. So even you can see for this one, the feathers are quite thick. And that's because I didn't prepare the wood as effectively as I should. But you can see it definitely still is going to do just fine. Some of that more detail work. All right, guys, we're back here wrapping up talking about the storm vector from Tops. Excuse my voice, I got a nasty cold going on. So let me tell you about price point. We're looking at about $225 for this chopping tool. Overall, this thing has functioned really well. There is a unique factor, I think, going on here, right? So you just have a very unique, different looking chopping tool blade than a lot of other people have. So I think there's something that stands out about that. Got the sheath right here, works great. It does a good job doing what it needs to do. I don't think there's anything super fancy about it. It's built well. Oh, shake the camera there. It's built well, it's rugged, everything that you want. The thing I would give you a heads up on is I would definitely encourage you to get a lanyard to lock your hand in, because there's no bigger finger guard here. So again, your hand could slip up depending on how you're chopping. So you want to be careful of of if you're swinging really aggressively, and you know, if you're swinging aggressively, it's actually more likely to go this way than this way. But if it locks into something, you don't want your hand to slip up and you know, slash your hand. That obviously be bad news. But as far as the chopping tool, I really like the weight, right? So in the 24 to 28 ounce range, I find to be super manageable, but it's got enough heft to actually do the chopping. And I do think that's got a very unique look to it overall. This, I'm always talking about systems when I think about knives. So this combined with something like, I think it's called their bull trout, or maybe their little bugger, like a bigger chopper and then a smaller blade. Nice combination for out in the woods. Now Tops is absolutely one of those buy once, cry once types of companies. You got to invest more money up front, but they make excellent knives. They're going to last a lifetime. I highly encourage you to purchase Tops knives. I have never had a Tops knife that like fell apart on me, busted on me, did something it wasn't supposed to do. There's some I like more than others based on the style and the function, but I've never had a bad Tops knife. So I stand behind these guys and what they're doing. They do great, great work. And I can't say that about every single company out there that I've worked with, or just every single company, obviously. But Tops definitely gets a thumbs up with this Storm Vector. Let's hear your thoughts on it. What do you like? What would you change? If you have one or you've used one, let's hear your thoughts as well. Do you like something a little bit smaller, maybe like the Operator 7, I believe it is, or something bigger? They've got some larger knives too. Let's get your thoughts and let's start the conversation in the comment section now. All right, guys, thanks as always for checking out the videos here on YouTube. Please subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids if you haven't done so already. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Check us out on Instagram, Tumblr, and Vero as well. More videos coming soon. Take care.